In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a material using Maya, then associate a texture with it so you can apply it onto your objects, onto your module assets, or onto props to help you UV your objects better. This is extremely helpful, especially when you need to make adjustments to your UVs and you need to also see your texture at the same time so you know how to position and place some of those UVs so they align correctly. This is extremely useful for module assets as well as for props, either uniquely textured props or props that use a trim sheet. So this tutorial will show you how to do this, and it will take your UVing to another level. So let's begin. I'm going to be using some of these assets: a modular wall, a column, a rounded column, and a couple of props. This desk prop uses a trim sheet, and this vending machine is uniquely textured. So I'll be using these as examples. All of these objects have been UV'd, and the UVs for them already been laid out. Some of these UVs are overlapping, such as for this modular wall, as well as for the column, and then for the desk they use a trim sheet. Many parts are also overlapping, and for the vending machine everything is uniquely unwrapped. So all the UVs are completed for these objects. Anytime you create a new object, so if I create a cube for example, and I'll just scale it larger, by default Maya will assign a default material called Lambert 1. To get access to the material editor, you'll find it inside the top toolbar right here, this icon. This is your Hypershade. This is your material editor. If you left click on this icon, Hypershade will open up. This is where the materials are created, and this is where you added all the nodes to make use of those materials. You will also find the Hypershade under Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. And right here you can see by default Lambert 1 will always be created and will always be inside the material editor, inside Hypershade. If you right click on this Lambert 1, since it's already assigned to all the objects, you can actually check to see which objects are using this Lambert 1 material. So if you right click hold on Lambert 1 or any material and then select objects in initial shading group, it will select all the objects that use this Lambert material, or any other material you do this onto. So this helps to select the objects or select the faces that are using this material. So to create a brand new material and then assign it onto any object, let's go ahead and create another Lambert. This is the one that I often use, and I only use these materials inside Maya just to assign an albedo or a base color, and then assign the material onto my object just so I can see the texture and know how to UV. I don't deal with actual material creation and rendering inside Maya. I always take these assets and everything I create, everything I model, and I take it into a game engine. So I'm not going to be connecting roughness, normal map, and everything else that's required to make a rendering complete with full lighting. This material creation will only cover creating a Lambert material, a very basic material, and only assigning a base color, an albedo to it, just so we get to display the texture on top of the meshes, as well as inside the UV editor, to help you UV your objects better, and more precisely to know exactly where to place those UVs. So just an important note for this tutorial. To create a brand new material, a Lambert in this case, just simply come over to this icon right here, under Create, and left click to create a new Lambert material. You will have Lambert 2 or Lambert 3 or a specific number associated with the Lambert, depending how many Lamberts you already created before. So we have our brand new material, and this material is not assigned to anything. And it's actually exactly the same as this Lambert one, but we'll make changes to it in just a second. If you select your Lambert material you just created, left click on it. This will select it and it will show you a preview as well as property editor for this material, and you can rename this. So you can rename it to anything you want. Let's name it to texture base color. I just wanted to change the name of it so it shows up something different. You can also make it darker or brighter, as well as change the color to something else that you want. I'm not going to do this. I'm simply going to make it grayscale and just keep this grayscale value or whatever the default was. Now, if you want to assign this material onto any mesh, let's say this wall right here, all you have to do is select the mesh, right click hold, and then go all the way down and assign the existing material and choose the material you want to assign. And here's the material we just created, texture base color. So as you do, you can see it got darker, and now this material, and now this mesh uses this new material. Again, we can check by right clicking on the icon and select objects with this material. So the name kind of changed from this one. Select objects in the initial shading group, and then when you have a new material, you can see that the text changes to select objects with material, which is exactly the same thing as before. Another way to assign that material is you can simply middle mouse click, drag onto another object, and this will assign it as well. You can do this to Lambert 1, or to any other material you have. And also, let me drag Lambert 1 on this wall. Also, you can assign the material by selecting an object and then right-click, hold on an icon for the material and choose Assign Material to Selection. Very easy, very simple, and a few ways of doing so. And if you want to see actually the graph and kind of take it further on your own and see all the nodes that are connected to it and what it does, you can right-click on the icon for the material and then choose Graph Network. This will graph the network for this material. There's not much happening here other than kind of this base initial shading group. But if you connect further, such as a base color, a normal map, and everything else, more nodes will pop up and you'll be able to edit them. And if you know how to edit your materials in Maya, you can take it a lot further. We're not going to worry about this graph editor. Again, this is not material editing and rendering tutorial. This is more just having that base color as part of our material for easier and better UVing. So those are just the basics of kind of getting around for creating your new material and assigning your material to your objects. Now, how do we associate a base color to this material and then display it inside the viewport and then inside the UV editor? To do this, again, open up Hypershade. Let's go ahead and open this up fresh. Open up Hypershade. We already have our material, texture base color. Make sure you have it selected so the property editor pops up and you have all the options here. And the property we're looking for is this color property. We want to click on this checker box icon right here. Left click on it. This will open up Create Render Node. Next, you want to click on File to associate a file with your material. As soon as you do, you can see that the graph editor and the nodes have expanded, and now we have a new node right here connected to color. However, this node currently is empty. There is no texture associated with it. And the property editor window has changed. And now you want to go ahead and click on Image Name and click on the folder icon. This will open up your project's source images folder and begin to look for a texture to use. Now you can place a texture to use inside here, and I currently have UV grid, so we can choose one of these to use. Or if you have a texture, which I do for these objects, or just a tiling texture to use, you can navigate anywhere on your drive to find it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm simply going to jump out of this folder, hit backspace, and just go to a directory where I know I have tiling textures, as well as some textures for those props that I want to use. So here I jumped into a folder where I have some ceramic tiles, tiling materials. And then I'm just going to choose one of these base colors to use. So I have a bunch of tile materials. I'm going to probably use 03 base color. Yeah, let's use this one right here. And I'm going to use base color only. Again, we're just using the albedo so we can see it inside the viewport. And we're going to ignore all the other ones such as roughness or normal map. So select your albedo. It can be a JPEG, can be a PNG, and click open. You can see it's now associated with your material. Let's go ahead and close this, and we'll come back to this in just a second to make some adjustments to just kind of get back into some of these menus. Now, all we need to do is assign that material onto one of the meshes. So let's go ahead and right click on this wall and choose Assign Existing Material, Texture Base Color. Now that material is already on this mesh, and if you cannot see it, then you have to turn on Texture View. Hotkey for this is 6. This is shaded display with texture maps. 5 is shaded only, 4 is wireframe, and 6 will show you the base color, the albedo texture applied onto your objects. And you can see right here, this icon gets turned on. So now if I zoom in, we can see our tile ceramic tile texture. If I open up the UV editor, I'm going to switch the workspace to UV editing. Inside the UV editor, we do not see our textures, and we have our shaded view on. So if you want to only display wireframe inside the UV editor, hit 4. If you want to see shaded view, hit 5. This is very helpful to see your UVs in a certain color. Blue is correctly oriented. Red will be inverted UVs, and just helps you to know which UV shells are inverted and need to be flipped. So blue color is what you want to see. Red color means the UVs are flipped, and you need to flip them back so they are blue. And if we want to see our texture appear inside the 0 to 1 space, inside the UV editor, you need to hit 6. And now the texture will appear. You can also hit this icon right here. This will toggle image display on and off if that material has it. Now in this moment, the shaded view takes it away. We can't quite see what we're looking at. So I'm going to hit 4 for wireframe. And now if I zoom in, we can see our ceramic tile and texture appear. So because we can see both inside the perspective viewport, our tile and texture, the ceramic, as well as inside the UV editor, editing UVs becomes a lot easier. So if you need to make adjustment, so let's go ahead and switch over to UVs. And I'm going to grab one of these UVs. If I begin to move or adjust certain faces, certain edges, and just move them inside the UV editor and make adjustments to those UVs, you can see that we can now make very precise alignments by looking at the texture inside the UV editor, as well as the result inside the perspective viewport. So this is extremely helpful, especially for modular assets, or any assets really, where you need to make those precise adjustments to your UVs and see what the results will be, such as placing those specific points or edges or faces over specific parts of your existing texture. And if the texture appears way too bright, like it's hard to see the UVs as well as the texture, you can dim the texture by using the slider right here. You can kind of dim it down so you can see the outline of your UVs, of those edges much better, and this can help a lot. Now, this can become very helpful to when you are trying to align certain parts of an edge of certain other assets. So let's go ahead and apply this same material to this rounded column. I'm going to assign existing material, texture-based color. It will now show up inside our UV editor. We can now see everything. And if I find my edge to where the seam is, and it's right here. So it allows me to take these edges, and this is how I align that seam on the ceramic tile for this rounded column, so it appears right where the grout is. Before, it was kind of in the middle, like so. So when you look at the object, you could clearly see that there's a seam. The actual UVs were in the middle of the tile, like so. So let me just clear this and get rid of the wireframe. Unshaded, Alt-5. So you could clearly see the seam, kind of this repetition being broken. And I needed to adjust my UVs for this column. And that's how I did it. I simply selected all the UVs and I began to scale them by having that texture image in the back inside the viewport inside Maya, like so. And I was able to adjust those UVs and make that seam appear inside the grout. So when you see the object itself, that seam is invisible. And this rounded column appears tiling across the entire rounded surface. Now let's go ahead and take it a step further by applying a new texture, which is going to be a trim texture onto this desk. So this desk uses a trim sheet texture, only a 2-strip. Upper portion right here, where you see most of these UVs, let me select the UV shells right here. All of this is wood. A bottom portion right here are the handles. The handles, the lock, and everything else, and that is metal. So the upper portion is wood, this bottom strip, that's metal. Simple trim texture, and a lot of these UVs are overlapping because I needed to maximize the UV space, and this is how you use the trim texture. You just simply take all the UVs and you cram them and place them overlapping into a specific part of the texture. And this texture is actually done. I created the texture first, and then I used that texture inside Maya so I can begin to lay out the UVs inside the 0 to 1 space. I know exactly where to place these UVs. And here's what the texture looks like. The upper portion is wood, the bottom portion is metal. So back inside Maya, let's go ahead and update our current material to have this trim sheet texture applied onto it. Now, of course, you can create a brand new material and just go through the steps we just did. So you have 2 materials now you can use. However, I'm going to show you how to swap and change, which you may not know how to do yet, and you will in just a second. So let's go ahead, switch back to object mode and bring up Hypershade. If you don't see your graph, or your graph includes other nodes compiled into one, a lot of times you'll have multiple nodes from different materials kind of stacked on top of each other. You may not be able to get back to some menus. Go ahead and select the material you want to edit. In this case, it's going to be this texture-based color Lambert. Then simply regraph your nodes inside the material editor by right-clicking and choose Graph Network. This will clear everything with whatever you had before and only show you the current material that you chose to graph network on. If you select any of these nodes, the texture editor property, the property editor window, will begin to change. So here, if you select this node right here, our base node, this is where you can change your name, and this is where we assign that color. You can click on this icon in order to jump into the next menu, or you can choose this node right here on the left-hand side. Middle mouse click and drag will pan you around this editor window. So if you select this next node by left-clicking, or left-click, hold and drag for marquee selection, this will bring you to that next menu. And here is where our image name was assigned. We can click on this folder to look for a new texture to assign and to update. So let me go ahead and find that trim sheet. Here it is. I simply navigated into the proper folder, found this texture, this base color, and I'm going to select it. I can double click on it, or I can select it and click open. Now we have this new base color associated with first material we created. And that's all we need to do. Let's go ahead and close this window, this Hypershade window, and now assign that material onto this mesh. Right click, hold on the selected object, assign existing material, texture base color. And now we can see our texture appear. And when I select it, we can now see also our texture, our base color inside the UV editor. Let's make it brighter so we can actually see what's going on. And you can see that certain parts were aligned and assigned to the upper portion for the wood, And then these bottom portion, that's metal. So I simply begin to UV this object and then place the UVs into their appropriate trim texture areas in order to texture this desk. And this is, again, extremely helpful because now you can see where to place them. And if you have some unique detail, in this case I don't, it's a very generic wood look. But if I had some ornaments, if I had some specific alignments that I would need to create and make sure I assign those UVs to those specific areas, then I could select my UV shells and then begin to move around the UVs. So I could just move these right here. So let's choose something bigger. This one right here, that's the side. So I could just start moving this around and make a very precise placement exactly where I would want those edges to align if I had those ornaments, if I had that detail that I would need to make sure align to specific areas of the texture. Extremely useful. And now for the last step, let's go ahead and kind of walk through the same steps as we did before, but just in one single motion from beginning to end for this vending machine. So let's go ahead and create a brand new material and assign a base color so we can see our texture, so we can adjust our UVs and make more precise placement of those UVs if you need it. Let's go to Hypershade, create a brand new Lambert material. Select it. Let's rename it. And this one is actually going to be called vending machine. And you can see that it kind of created another node for our vending machine Lambert, but it also has the other nodes in it. So let's go ahead and clear this by just regraphing our current network. Right click hold on our material and choose graph network. Here we go, much cleaner. Then make sure that your node is selected and this property editor window is up. Go to color, go to this checker box, create render node window pops up, go to file, go to image name, folder, and then choose the folder where your texture is at. Again, it navigates into the source images folder automatically of the Maya project, but you can jump outside of this folder anywhere you want. And here I navigated into the folder where this vending machine texture is. I'm going to go ahead and assign the base color, double click on it, and now it's part of this material. Let's go ahead and close Hypershade now and go back to object mode. Right click on the mesh, assign existing material, and choose the material that you renamed, in this case vending machine. Make sure you press 6 to display your texture maps, and also do the same thing inside the UV editor. If you don't see it, just press 6 to toggle it on or off. You can also actually go to image and choose display right here. That's the same exact thing. And now whether you are inside the perspective viewport or inside the UV editor, you can go ahead and navigate closer, switch over to UVs or UV shell, and choose the UVs that you need to make adjustments to, scale them. Actually, let me zoom in so we can see, and then make adjustments and more precise positioning of those UVs to make that fine tuning or to make your process of texturing much more precise and much better. So that is how you create a brand new material, assign a base color to it, display that texture inside the viewports, either UV editor or perspective viewport, and begin to make those UV adjustments based on the texture that you have. And if you want to learn how to model with Maya and how to UV your objects so you can use this technique, as well as how to model your environment assets, whether it's modular assets or props, take a look at Maya Foundation. This is the definitive environment design modeling and UVing course using Maya. And it will show you everything you need to get started in order to begin to master Maya for environment modeling and UVing.